I actually do see people are joining. So, complete disclaimer here. I have not, we have not really hosted or launched live events for ourselves. So, this is the first time we're using StreamYard. Kaylee was familiar with that. And for everyone who doesn't know us, if you're joining, my name is Justin Rowe, founder, CMO here at Impactable. And I'll let Kaylee introduce herself as well. She'll be my co host here.
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylee Morella. I am the head of content here at Impactable, and we're going to teach you a little bit about thought leadership today and how it goes into your omni-channel marketing strategies.
And so, yeah, the idea would be Kaylee runs the organic side, the thought leadership, content offering for Impactable, and does the internal motion for ourselves. And then obviously Impactable, maybe not obvious to everyone. Again, some might not know us. We're a LinkedIn ads agency. So I plan to talk about the other side of that fence. What do you do with that organic thought leadership motion? Is that disconnected from the paid ad side? Or in my opinion, does that actually power and makes the paid ad side more efficient, giving us good assets to distribute to the prospects? And what does that look like, that relationship between the two? So actually do see, and again, this is my first time hosting it, so I'll be very transparent about my flaws here. I did see the intro video come through. That's good. And I already see people commenting saying that they're in. So I will say this. I have the comments over here. Kaylee can help watch these, or I guess whoever's not speaking, maybe we'll try to
Mhm.
watch these. If you guys have real questions about this first one's going to be like the basics. So like a lot of people, what is thought leadership? What is thought leadership on LinkedIn? What does that look like? Why should you care? And then, yeah, if you actually are bought into it, how does organic thought leadership connect to the paid ad side? That's what we plan to get into on this one. And then this is going to be ideally a monthly series that we put on, talking about how can you use AI in that flow? How can you take these assets and just disperse them across multiple channels? How can you create an evergreen bingeable content library around these things? What else can you do? So that's what we plan to get into. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in there. But we're going to kick this off and go over to Kaylee. And the first thing that I think Kaylee's going to dive into is what the heck is thought leadership? Why should we care? And a couple of things in that view.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for the introduction, Justin. This is our first time, but we're already pretty professional over here. I'm impressed. Disclaimer, I am a little stuffy today, so bear with me. But yeah, so thought leadership. This term is tossed around all over the place on B2B marketing channels, specifically LinkedIn. So what is thought leadership? Anyone can be a thought leader. But I think you don't have to have a ton of followers, you don't have to have a big platform. It's more about posting things that people find value in, and then the rest of that will come. So, what do people find value in? That's the main question here that we want to answer. So, that's going to come from sharing original insights, your opinions, your expertise, not just posting to stay active, but really posting to put yourself out there and present yourself as an expert in your field, in your space. So, your point of view is the most important part here. People don't want to see someone post the same thing as everyone else. There's trend hopping, there's a lot of things going on. Social media is so saturated, especially LinkedIn right now for the B2B marketing side of things. So people don't want to see someone post the same exact things as everyone else. That is where thought leadership comes in. So they want to see real depth, real raw opinion that makes you stand out in that space as someone they want to follow and invest time in. So that's a little bit more about what thought leadership is, but why does it matter so much? Thought leadership is really crucial in today's industry because, like I said, everything is so saturated. Everyone is doing the same things. We know we need to post, we know that we need to do all of these things, but how do we do it in a way that makes us stand out? Because standing out is no longer about having the loudest message. It's more about who has the most valuable perspective. So I always like to say anyone can look up a service on Google or anything like that, and whoever's at the top might get picked and call it a day. But that's not how you build real trust, especially with the B2B agents or B2B services and SaaS services and things. We want to make sure that we're really showing ourselves up and showing people who we are before we work with them. So thought
I
leadership is
would
all
add
about, yeah, go for it.
something there too. And yeah, what Kaylee said about a unique positioning or saying having a point of view in the market, I honestly think that's massive because we see it the same on the ad side. Like it's not enough if you have an HR software or a lead gen tool, you don't just need to educate people about like why you need an HR tool. Like even if you convince them that they need that tool, why the heck would they choose yours? So you need to have a unique like point of view of what you solve or how you solve that differently or what you focus on or what industry you do better than all your competitors. Because otherwise, yeah, you're just making noise and you might create demand for a general category, but then you're not going to do anything specific that's going to generate a lot of pipeline for yourself. So I do think like a unique point of view is something that's really critical to this motion. And you can't farm that out to your intern. That has to come from the top. Whoever's the subject matter experts in your organization, that has to get extracted. And that's the kind of content that's to power organic and paid. So yeah, really critical step, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of brings me to my next point because in order to do all of that, we need to build trust and authority. And that is all about what thought leadership is. Thought leadership is part of your middle of the funnel strategy, if we're familiar with sales marketing funnels, and it's used to warm up and nurture those prospects. So, like Justin said, we want to be building trust, we want to be building that authority. This is where you're going to get that. So, say you see an ad for a service and you want to do more research on it. So, you go to that LinkedIn account, but there's nothing really there for you to look at. Maybe a link, maybe a website, maybe book a call, but there's nothing that really values or no, validates that as a service that could be helpful in building trust. If you're actively posting, if you're actively populating your page, showing up on the regular, you have a much higher chance of not only catching someone's attention, but also closing that deal because this person can see how you not only have this service, but you're promoting it. You're showing what you're doing. You're showing your success, like putting yourself out there as someone to be trusted there. They might be following your content, so you were top of mind when they were looking for your service. But not only does that help you close the deal, but it's also going to be more meaningful and fulfilling because this person has followed you and has seen your content and they know what you're about. So you're going to be working with someone that understands you, understands your service, and is just really going to be a nice prospect to work with. The
And that
last one,
really
go for
shortens
it.
or accelerates the deal cycle too. And we see
Yes.
that on our sales team too. So what's Kelly's saying about being familiar, building trust, and it's way different when it's on a personal level because it's different if you just put out your ads and they're like, okay, this company understands my needs. That's one thing. But then if you actually can expose the people, the founder, the CEO, the CMO, the subject matter expert, and it's like this team understands. And in fact, I know I'm going to be working with Sam or I'm going to be working with Kelly, and I'm excited about the people. What we found is people, prospects that are exposed to thought leadership content, when they book the call and when they start talking to sales, they're already like 60 or 70% sold. They have questions. They want to know if you can help them specifically. But at that point, they're usually already sold that you are the expert in your space. You understand their needs. They trust you already. And then that's a lot shorter gap to overcome. Whereas in traditional marketing, like you get an interest, you get contact information, you get them to agree on a demo, and they're starting at like basically zero. A sales rep has to take them from literally no trust into trying to build trust and relationship to close the deal. Thought leadership does all of that work for you so that when they show up to the call, yeah, close rates are higher, deal sizes are bigger, and that makes a huge difference in the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I always like to say LinkedIn is like a living resume. So when you're posting about your experiences, you're being raw, you're being real, you're being honest. That's what's going to stand out and position you. So like Justin said, people want to know who they're working with. They don't want to just work with a logo. They want to work with a person that they trust. So thought leadership and organic content is where you build that trust. Posting about your experiences behind the scenes, what's going on in the office one day? What are you going on a trip or something? These are the things that people want to see. They want to work with a human. And to show that you are human, you need to be posting on social media. So that's where thought leadership comes into that aspect of thing.
We've seen a lot of, you name some good stuff that thought leadership is. I think one thing that would be good to cover would be what are the things that it's not? What are the misses that people think it is or try and fail? Yeah, what are those kind of things that thought leadership is not you'd warn against?
Absolutely. So I would say the first thing that most people come to me about and ask about is trends. Chasing trends with no clear stance. That is the biggest thing that thought leadership is not. There's so many trends that are going on social media, and I talked about this a little earlier, specifically on LinkedIn as well. There's always some new thing going on every week, maybe a GIF or a joke or something that everyone's participating in. While that is fun, jumping on trends just for visibility isn't thought leadership. It's more noise. You're kind of just populating your feed. Not to say that you shouldn't do it, but the whole point of thought leadership is to stand out with your unique point of view. So you want to create content that reflects your expertise and not necessarily what everyone else is saying this week or the next week or the next month and so on and so forth. So that being said, like I said, you can absolutely hop on whatever trend is happening on that feed that week, but make sure that you're still posting content of value along with it. The other thing that goes with that is posting generic tips or over-polished fluff content. That's content that sounds like it could be written by anyone else. It's not gonna make people stop scrolling. It might be too polished, too safe, could apply to anyone, any business. It's not adding value or building trust in that way.
Would
So
this
that's where yeah.
Would this be a bad example? I was telling Jonathan that we should hijack this. I do think there's some value in
100%.
hijacking, but if that's your whole strategy, then that's terrible. But we thought this was funny, taking that Wimbledon AI and saying, well, she didn't need to be there in person to have impact, and neither do you with like digital retargeting. But yeah, if that's your whole strategy, that's not going to get you anywhere. But it can be a clever little feed hack.
Yeah, and if you wanna add it in every now and then, I think that's fine. There was a trend going around where people were, like, posting their pets or something the other day, and hopping on those types of things, harmless, anything like that, but you really wanna make sure that you're still supplementing that with that thought leadership content of value that people are actually going to take something away from.
And then what would be your advice for people if they're saying, okay, thought leadership, I've heard a lot about it. I do think that's something that would be valuable. Where do I start? What's like some basic things that could maybe at least get me moving in the right direction?
Yeah, so I always start with questions, especially with thought leadership. You want to make sure that you are providing that value. You're making sure that people are actually going to take something away from your content here. So, the first question that I always start with is what do I truly believe about my industry? And this always gets clients really thinking. What opinions do you have? What controversies do you might have? Anything like that. That's what's going to stand out to begin with there. And then what makes your approach different? Are you doing something different than anyone else? Why should people know? Why should people care? And then the last one that I always think about is what problems do I solve better than anyone else? Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to sell a service. We're all trying to solve problems. So thought leadership content and organic content, even in general, is made to solve those answers. So ask the questions from your prospects. Think about the things that they're asking you on the daily, on sales calls, discovery calls, anything like that. Answer those questions in your content so that they don't even have to ask them to you. They already know the answers. You're the person that's giving that to them, and that's gonna be creating value. The other thing that I will say is consistency is the biggest thing possible. People think that they can just post 1 week, call it a day, maybe post a couple other days later or something. You really wanna be consistent because with consistency, that is when the algorithm learns who you are, who you're serving, what is your service, all of that. If the algorithm doesn't get the chance to learn what it is you're posting about and what you have to offer, then it's not gonna be able to recommend any of your stuff to the people that are looking for it in that way. So I always say start with maybe 1 post a week if you're really busy. Try to batch them as much as you can. I always try to batch maybe 2 weeks in advance just to make sure that content is still evergreen, still timely. But if you wanna bump it up to 2 posts a week, 3 piece posts a week, I always get asked how many times should I be posting a week? 5 times a week if possible. That's probably ideal. I know that's what Justin does. I know that's what we do with our company page. That's what I strive to do on my page as well. Post as much as you can. That's what's going to learn the algorithm, or that's what's going to teach the algorithm what it is you're about, what it is you're servicing, and all of that. But yeah, strategy, consistency, visibility, those are the kind of 3 key things there. And if you're looking for more advice on how to start, my DMs are always open or always available, and I'm always happy to hop on a call with anyone.
So I would parrot that consistency is probably one of the biggest things you can do. And what where most people go wrong is they start overly ambitious. They're like, okay, I'm bought into thought leadership. I'm going to post 5 times a week. They do that for 3 weeks. They get burnout. They didn't see results and then they drop off. It would be way better for you to post once or twice a week consistently for 6 months, then go crazy for 3 or 4 weeks, then drop off the map. The other thing that I see is commenting, especially early on. If you don't have a big following, you're making posts that people aren't seeing. That can lead to burnout really quickly too, because if you feel like you're doing this work, you feel like you're posting smart things, but you're not doing enough to expose yourself to grow your network intentionally, then you might not see the fruits of your labor. So commenting is a good strategy. Commenting on relevant thought leader posts in your area, you'll likely get more exposure from strategic comments than from your own posts. And then I'm a big fan of strategically growing your network. So I think starting out, one of the other things you can do, send 10 connection requests a day to like relevant prospects. Because yeah, think about it like content posting, like you can post and if I build it, they will come. Yes, some of that happens. It happens a lot more when you have a big following already. But when you're just starting out, like it takes a little more effort to intentionally build your profile. I see 2 questions. The first one I'll take, and then one I'll kick over to Kaylee. The one I'll take is Beth is asking about the AI generated campaigns on LinkedIn. So I'll tackle that. And then I'll kick it over to Kaylee for a tip on how to be consistent without wasting tons of your time. Is there a way to consistently post that isn't going to eat up all of your time? But on that first one, with most platforms, their goal, God bless their hearts, is to get us to spend more money on the platform. That's their job. That's why they exist. Now, theoretically, they should, in a perfect world, tie that to revenue and only recommend things that help drive the business forward. But in reality, a lot of their best features are more geared towards big enterprise accounts. And it doesn't necessarily work for like the vast majority of small to mid-sized marketers. So the AI campaign setup might be great for bigger campaigns with tons of budget where you can go broader. I don't see a ton of use cases where that's very effective for small to mid-size companies. I would advocate for a lot more intentional targeting. Typically, when you do the AI version, it'll do audience expansion, LinkedIn audience network. It will allow it to go a lot broader. And I don't find that to be the most effective for people with budget conscious approaches. And for the other question, yeah, what's your best tip or advice for someone who says, okay, I want to be consistent, but I want to be conscious of my time, or there's some time saving tips or advice of what I could do to make that more consistent without spending all day on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest questions I always get asked. I always say, like I said earlier, you should batch content as much as you can. Try to batch 2 weeks in advance. So if you can sit down for an hour, 2 hours, write out a bunch of content, maybe film some videos, and then batch that in 2, 3 weeks or so, that's gonna be the best way to stay consistent and then to keep doing that. The whole point of organic content and the whole way to make sure that it stays consistent is to make time for it. So block off your calendar for an hour, do what you need to do. I just saw a comment about piggybacking on thought leaders. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so block off your calendar. You have to make time for it. But the beauty of organic content here is that you can experiment with things. So you can batch content in advance and then see what works, see what doesn't work, maybe try something else another week. But yeah, I would just try to get as much of it done as you can and then keep up with that as a routine. The other thing is scheduling platforms, different things like that. There's a lot of different tools. We use Assembly. Shout out to Assembly, love them. But there's also Asana, there's Monday, there's later.com. There are a ton of free scheduling platforms that are going to help you stay consistent. And then you can also use AI platforms to help with batching content in that way too.
Nice. Thank you. There's another question I'll tackle, and it's about at what point do you decide to send I can't even talk outreach message to people who engage with your content? And do you have a standard way to of reaching out, or is it custom? So I will tackle that just here in a second. So I'll come back to that. But I'm gonna dive in. That was a great job taking the organic side. Why should we even care? How do you get started with the organic side? But then yeah, the other side, people seem to not understand how to connect a lot of times is okay. I understand that, but then paid strategy seems completely separate. Okay, I have an organic, but in my mind, those two should be the same. Like my paid strategy, a lot of times, is to amplify what's working organically. It's not let's post this organic stuff and then figure out something else that speaks to our audience. If you do organic, you're figuring out what your target audience resonates with, what kind of content piques their interest, and also what causes action. Like, and when I say amplify your successful organic posts, it's not the ones with the most likes or comments always. It's the ones that have higher ICP engagement. It's the ones that cause people to like actually comment, like your prospects actually commenting, engaging, actually DMing you, saying, asking for advice or asking for an audit. That type of piece of content actually resonated with your demographic and it caused action. So one of the things that I would say, let's see, and I'll change over to this, would be, and this was interesting. I forget who put out this. There was a research paper put out on what was it called? Hidden buyers. And basically it was talking about how thought leadership, 95% of people who were surveyed are open to outreach if they were exposed to thought leadership content from that brand. So that's the percentage of hidden buyers who say strong thought leadership makes them more receptive to sales conversations. And that's what we were talking about earlier about good thought leadership motion, actually priming the pump and warming up prospects to be reached out to because they already feel familiar. And then 71% trust factor. Buyers who trust thought leadership content more than traditional marketing materials. And again, like when I scroll my feed on LinkedIn, like I can easily see, okay, this is an ad. This is Gig Radar. They're retargeting me because I looked at that. Here's actual humans posting. And so as an actual human, and here's a company with a document ad, or that might just be a document. The thought leadership ads are look like actual people. They have their title, and the only difference is that it will say promoted under it. Let's see if we can find one out here in the wild real quick. Normally I get littered with them. Oh, here's one. So it looks like it's from an actual person. It has their name, it has their title. The only difference is it'll say promoted, and then this one is actually being promoted by LinkedIn, but it could be a different company. So we run these a lot of times for ourselves. So here's our actual LinkedIn, our LinkedIn ad account. Here's a group of ads that we're running as thought leader ads. And yeah, in the feed, they look just like any other ad. So let's go into this one. This is one we did with one of our clients. So it was a client interview. Their company was later acquired by a publicly traded company. We had nice co-brand, like nice content with them. And then we have this promoted. And so it just looks like this. The beauty of thought leadership, like ads in my mind, is that it collects and keeps all the likes, comments, and engagement. So when you're just starting off with a new ad on LinkedIn or any platform, it starts with zero engagement. And that the actual likes and comments, just like something in the feed, if it already has natural traction, it's going to do better than something that is starting from scratch. So just in that alone, like validating organically and then taking that and not just learning from it and creating ads, but literally making that post an ad, it continues to have all of the likes, all of the comments, all of the shares, all of that social proof baked in. So it's naturally just going to have an unfair advantage over traditional ads that you wouldn't necessarily have. And that's why I love thought leadership ads. And then to your point, whoever asked the question about when do I do outreach to that, here's what I would say. This is like my thought leadership from organic to paid playbook that I would recommend you think about this. And so what Kaylee talked about is doing thought leadership. I definitely recommend like the video side of that. I'm a big fan of the video. And as you're posting those, you start to see which ones are performing the best. And again, that's not likes, comments, views. That's, am I getting resonating with the right audience? Am I getting actual inbound requests from this? That's how I know. I turn those best organic posts into thought leader ads, just like I showed you right now. Ideally, in my mind, those you would either run those in cold to a target account list, or you run this in retargeting, qualifying and retargeting what traffic you already have. One of the biggest advantages that I believe LinkedIn ads has, and when I show you this, is that it can actually track, qualify, and convert your existing audience. So when I look at what audience I'm targeting here, this isn't a cold audience. This is website visitors, company page visitors, people that interacted with my cold ads. And then on top of that, they have to be one of these position titles. They have to be in one of these company sizes, and we can change that. And this traffic comes from Google search, it comes from SEO, it comes from organic, but LinkedIn Insight Tag can see all that traffic. It can layer on qualifying filters, and then you can put thought leadership content in front of warm ICP fit prospects. Because the biggest difference about someone in B2B buying or not buying, it's not just you didn't get their logo in front of you enough, it's trust. B2B is big buying decisions, and trust is the biggest secret sauce. And you're not going to get there by running boring corporate ads a lot of times. You get there by humanizing your brand, showing insightful subject matter expertise, and giving them a team and a personality and a point of view that they can buy into. And to Kaylee's point about unique positioning, if you sell them a vision of something that only you can execute, then you're not just creating demand for a type of solution like HR software, you're creating demand for your specific version of that solution that they can't get anywhere else. And that's really powerful. So I know this is going quick. So my answer to that question of when should you reach out would be this: when you're doing organic plus paid, and I'll end here and then we can take a couple more questions, or I'll see if we have it, is you're creating signals. On the organic side, you're getting personal profile viewers. That's a signal. You're getting followers from this motion. You're getting people that engage on your posts. You're getting people that follow your company page. When you amplify that with ads, you get additional signals. You get people that visit your company page, and that's an ad trackable, retargetable audience. Lead gen form opens, chargeable clicks to those ads, event attendees, video view percentage. So as you saw, I was running thought leadership videos and retargeting. I can then track to see what people watched more than 75% of one of those videos, and that's the group that I would retarget. So if I come down here, I take those signals, and this is what I would do to them. Yeah, if I have people that are watching 50, 75, 97% of a video, thought leadership video, I can run a conversation ad, which is basically like a targeted direct message to that group. I can also look now with LinkedIn Company Hub, and I can see the companies that have actual exposure to ads. So I didn't think I was going to show you guys this, but I'll show you this real quick. If you haven't seen this, this is probably one of my new favorite features of LinkedIn. You can actually go in here, whether by company or by list. You can look at uploaded lists and then see the exact companies that have been exposed to ads. And then you could export this, you could enrich this, but this is like new information that was never there before. This is a great list of people, of warm companies that fit our ACP, because this is an uploaded list that we know who we are. Like, that's pretty powerful. And then on the other side, I do actually do some nice touches. If I have an ICP fit profile viewer, and you can set up a filter in Sales Navigator. So through this motion, I'm generating people that are visiting my profile. Some of them are qualified. If they are, I want to be proactive and send them a connection request and bring them into my network so that they can continue to see more of my content. So there's systematic things you can do with each of those signals. And this is something we can share and follow up after this event. But yeah, it can be very systematic about creating the content, a consistent motion, amplifying with ads, tracking those signals, and then doing nurture motion. So that time flies by fast. We decided to do a 30-minute session here because we want it to be like bite size and actionable. I'm going to look at the questions real quick. If you guys have any last minute questions, we'll continue to follow up on this after the event and answer all the questions. We'll make sure we do that. So let me just take a quick glance, see if we have anything new. Yes, this is going to be recorded. And if possible, and again, I'm a noob at this, if I have access, I'll send a follow up email with kind of the deck, resources, the video, things like that. So if you don't get that by this time next week and you were here, reach out to myself or Kaylee. We'll make sure you get recording, the deck, and any additional resources that thought leader strategy that I shared. So that was it for today. That was fast moving. If you guys have questions, continue to ask those, but I appreciate it. And if you need help with your own thought leadership motion, Kaylee, again, she runs my thought leadership motion. She's building an internal motion for us at Impactable. We eat our own dog food in that. Not saying that our content motion is dog food, but we practice what we preach is probably a better way to say that. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
And